start my video. Well, not my video, not me, sorry. Otherwise, they're gonna look at that. Can't you feel?
Is it unmute?
Yeah, it's unmute. That one is that camera.
Oh, I see. Calling the Honolulu Police Commission meeting to order. It is now 2:05 p.m. on June 17th. We are here live at the Honolulu Police Station at Alapai Station. Pursuant to a supplementary proclamation, we are restricting access to our meeting room for social distancing requirements under Emergency Order number 2020-11 by Governor Ige and Mayor Kirk Caldwell's May 13, 2020 executive order. We're calling the meeting to order. Can we get quorum?
Yes.
With quorum established, now we will take public testimony. As stated on the agenda, public testimony will be accepted via telephone or in person as stated on the agenda. As noted, we have no requested telephone testimony within our 24 hours before this meeting, and as of right now, we have no in-person testimony requests being requested. And that has been confirmed. Thank you, everyone, joining us live on YouTube. Most of you have gotten the link on our website, and we appreciate you joining us today. And now we'll get into the agenda with Chief of Police report.
Okay, basically for the use of force policy review, as you know, we did temporarily suspend the LVNR until we finished the policy review. And it's not just that, it's the entire policy. And we have asked participation for the Police Commission on the committee. So it's PSO, our training division, ITD, and right? And our legal advisor is on the committee. So I think Chair Olivato attended. Did you attend?
Not yet. The first meeting is June 24th, so we have it on our agenda to discuss whether another. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, Chief, for the invitation.
And we're hoping that that'll take, no more than like 3 months, to take a look. It's a pretty voluminous policy, but I think that it's time that we go through it and make sure that we're, covering all of our bases on that. The other thing that we're also doing is that Captain Lambert is working on the partnerships with the social service workers, to try and get the social service workers to ride in the cars with the officers for a pilot program to respond to cases where, like maybe, those who are mentally ill, any type of case where someone might be, I hate to say out of control, but might in crisis, thank you, that might need to be talked down, and to work with them to see how that works. So that has been initiated, and then what we've also did. I'm sure you saw probably the article in Civil Beat. So our use of force report is an annual report, and it's supposed to record statistics from the previous year. Unfortunately, when we took a look at it, the numbers didn't match up. I mean, I had a concern when I took a look at the table, and I have to ask somebody what it meant. So if I have to ask somebody what it means and what we're comparing, then obviously there should be a problem. And that's one of the issues, our record keeping, and it kind of goes back to when we created a program that was homemade. And, we've never been able to get the same statistics every time we run it in this program. We get different statistics, and I don't know if it's because of the way they run it, who runs it, information, but it's unacceptable. Unfortunately, we're stuck with this homemade system until we get our new system in place. So one of the first things I did when I became chief was to We actually purchased a CADS RMS, which is pretty much the backbone of our entire department. So our CADS is computer-aided dispatching system, and the RMS is a records management system. And that is, everything goes into that and everything comes out of that. And it was, I mean, millions of dollars. And we just used our asset forfeiture for that because at the time I felt that it was something that we needed to do, we had to do. Because I just didn't feel comfortable with a homemade system. We're a major police department. We should have something that is reliable. And I mean, and not saying the current one isn't reliable, but it's just not working the way that we feel that it should be working. So the CAD should be online. We're hoping later this year, or the computer-aided dispatch one, the records management system will probably be another year and a half or 2 years down the road. It's quite a process to get this thing implemented. And so until then, we're going to have to take a look at what we're reporting and pretty much break it down to just core information, basic information, nothing fancy. I mean, it may go from a 8-page report down to 1 page, so that we have statistics and information that's reliable and that can be counted. And the reason for this report is supposed to be our training division, and it's supposed to, you know, work with our PSO to look and see what areas are we weak in. I mean, okay, so we use this type of force in this many cases. Could we have used something else, or do we need to look at another option to bring in, another type of intermediate force? So it's supposed to be a way to review everything, and the way it is right now, it isn't. It's basically useless, to be honest with you. So the 2019 report was supposed to have been published by now, but once I saw the problems, I just don't feel comfortable publishing something that's unusable. So we're pulling it back, and we're not going to publish it until we get this thing squared away and straight. And once we publish it, it will be put online. I don't know why it's never been put online. Our annual report is, but the use of force report never has been. Don't know why. Somebody asked, and it's one of those like, I have no idea, but I don't see why we can't. So we will once the thing becomes available. Some of the other things that we're taking a look at, along with some of the reforms that are going on, is that our training division is currently training officers. So instead of doing prone, you know, where they prone laying on your belly, you know, and you know, to do like we do felony card stops, or you know, because it's more control when somebody's on their belly, handcuff them and whatnot. So anytime someone is I don't want to say violent, but you know, isn't cooperative, then officers now being trained a different way for handcuffing and leg shackles. I mean, obviously there are times when, you know, if they are going to be put on their belly, it's momentary. I mean, it's like quick. You put the handcuffs on and then you roll it back over. So anyway, so that training is ongoing. We're also looking at doing more formal training for our plainclothes units, and also looking at intermediate weapons for them. So instead of, because right now they just, you know, they basically carry their gun, and it goes from touch to bang. And there's really nothing, no options in between. So we're looking at, you know, having them carry some type of intermediate force so that it doesn't have to escalate from the bottom to the top. So those are some of the things that we're also looking at. We continue, and with our plainclothes unit, we're going to be really concentrating even more on de-escalation training for them. We're really good with de-escalation training for our uniformed officers and in recruit school and whatnot, but I think that we just need to do more for our plainclothes unit, especially because they have such a limited range of force options for them. And then we're also training division. Unfortunately, COVID came in. Is that we were already looking at implicit bias training. It's a 2-day training, you know, for the officers as well. So as soon as COVID is over, then you know, we're gonna bring that, because, you know, we gotta wait until the quarantine's over before we can really do anything. Of course, chokeholds have always been banned by us. There's a difference between chokeholds and the DNR. Chokeholds blocks the airway, DNR is blood flow. So, I mean, they're two different areas. We already do warnings that before they shoot. We have, our policy also talks about that you don't shoot at a moving vehicle unless somebody's life is in danger, immediate danger. We will be doing more training on positioning when it comes to vehicles. So, you know, you don't put yourself in that situation where a car's going to drive at you. That training is going to be ongoing. We have a use of force continuum, and we do have, we've always taught, since I came on board, they're required to intervene. So, I mean, I used to call it, you got to be each other's wingman, a wing person. So if you see your seat partner's doing something, you need to step in and stop it. But we never really put anything in writing, so that's one of the things that we will be putting in writing in our policy, in our use of force policy. We've also we've ordered 2 use of force simulators, and this was probably 6 months ago that we ordered them. And so one will be placed in the main station and one will be at training, so that people can go up and we can, you know, run through scenarios to work on, you know, de-escalation, split-second decisions, that type of thing. And then, I guess just in general, the protests have been, you know, peaceful, so we appreciate, you know, our citizens and our folks here, our community here in Honolulu being the way that they are. We really appreciate it. I think we really, the way that we hold things over here, the protest, I think, you know, the nation can learn a lot from us, you know, on how we interact with our communities. And I think that's, I know there's some stuff on new business. Did you want me to cover the stuff under your new
maybe later as we get to,
Okay.
maybe we can open up to questions.
Chief, when the CAD programming is done and it's implemented shortly, will we be able to go back in history with that as well and replicate the history that's missing, or?
We should be able to. They're supposed to be integrating the 2 programs to be able to draw the information that we currently have in the CSR, which is the program we have now, into the new program. And the beauty about, so we have this program up in internal affairs, in our PSO, that once because right now numerous people input information, and so it's like some people can input it this way, some people can input it that way. So when we get the new CADS program, our program up in PSO is going to be able to integrate with that. And so all these reports that we need, like use of force and everything, can just be generated from one place. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, our department that's just been, for whatever reason, one of our weakest areas is you know, reports and getting consistent information.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be in good shape soon, so that's great.
We hope.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to ask you is, can you give us an example of intermediary gun or weapon? Yeah, is that?
So it would be like taser, OC, or the pepper spray, baton. We are going to be we had looked at it once before. We chose not to do it, and it's called the bolo wrap. So we're going to be looking into that again. It's basically like shoot this net and it drops over the person type of thing. So we're going to be looking into that again, you know, as another possible option, you know, a less lethal option for the officer. So those are like the intermediary steps between, you know, I mean, you've got all the different, I think there's like 8 different steps all the way up.
Most of those you have to be pretty close, right?
Yeah, and the thing is people think it's continue. You got to start here and move your way up.
Right.
It's not. I mean, because it's kind of situations. The officer needs to, you know, choose that level of force where he or she can control the situation. So, but then once they control the situation, they're supposed to de-escalate down, you know, to a less amount of force.
Thank you.
Chief, in terms of the use of force policy. How long did you say that was going to take to use?
It'll probably take, I mean, 2 months would be great, but I dare say, it'll probably be about 3 months before the report goes up.
And what do you base that on? Do you look for sort of best practices around the country, around the world?
Yeah, we do. We look at best practices. We look at, like seminars. Matter of fact, we're going to be looking at trying to bring down this individual who's like premier with the use of force and stuff with training, and bringing him down here to not only train our officers, but also a one-on-one with us so that we can pick his brain to see, are we doing things the right way? Because when we go to a major city chiefs conferences, when you take a look at what we're doing and what they're doing, we're either on par with them or much better. And we have a really good network. So anytime you have a question about anything, you can just send it out to the major cities, and then you get responses back. So you can compare, because we don't want to really deal with the smaller police departments because, their budget or, that type of thing and the number of officers they have, it really isn't consistent with what we deal with. So that's why we try and stay with the departments that are with our major city chiefs association.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of times about retraining some of the officers. That's mandatory training, I presume?
It will be, yes.
And how long does it take to sort of train the entire force?
It takes a year. So what we'd probably do, we put it in our annual recall training. And so everybody has to go through annual recall training every year. And so unless it's something that we need like right away, so like for the crew units, because we don't have to do patrol, it's just crew, we can just do them all in one whack. So, probably, within a month or so, we can get them all trained.
Yeah. And in terms of the, you mentioned social services ride-along, has that been tried before? It seems like a good idea to me.
Well, we did something similar, but just with domestic violence, but the worker only could stay at the station. They weren't allowed with the officer. And so now it's like, they're not going to like go, so if it's a volatile situation, obviously the officer's going to go up first, make sure that, the scene is safe, and then the social worker would stay in the car. And then when, everything's safe, then, the social worker would come up at that point. So this is the first time we've done it to this extent. We're in the car, because we do have social workers now that work side by side with Captain Lambert with the health and with the post program and the Honolulu program.
Yeah. I like the sound of that. It sounds really good. And so when you talked about updating the computer systems, what's the sort of generation of the old one? How long did it play?
Let's see, I've been at for 2.5 years. I want to say about 5 years. Yeah, about 5 years.
And that was one that was
It was homemade. It was made by 2 officers in the department. Yeah, which, they're, God bless them, they did a great job, because our old system was ready to, it was going to stop at any time.
Yeah.
And they chose to go this way, which is fine, and it's worked okay, but we need something a little bit more robust at this point.
So there's sort of generally sort of nationally accepted sort of standards for saying, what's this level and what's that level and so on. So,
I mean, for force.
Yeah.
There's really no standard. It depends upon which department. They're similar, but there's really no specific standard.
So it's very hard to compare across the country.
Like I said, they're probably, especially for the major cities, a lot of them are similar, but but they're not going to be identical, because it also depends upon what tools that your officers have available to them.
Thanks.
Thank you. So going back to the reporting, so I guess relative to Commissioner Perry's question, so we often get statistics at a point in time. We don't really see trends, or we don't know the trends. So my guess, I'm just guessing, and you can confirm or not. So notwithstanding violent crimes increasing recently, in general, Honolulu is, for metropolitan city our size, which is a 4-star sign, our incidents, use of force, arrest, tend to be lower in general?
They do in general, and once again, I'm gonna give you a statistic, but,
Yeah.
you know, don't hold me
Yeah,
to it.
yeah.
So, like, last year, allegedly, there were like, 2,700, or a little over 2,000 incidences of use of force.
Okay.
Okay, and of those incidences, I think, was like, okay, so the majority of them, and I want to say like close to 95% were touch, escort, you know, that type of, because anytime, if I just touch someone, oh, sorry, not violated one person, then that's actually, the officers have to fill in a use of force report form. And people don't, so when we say use of force report form, it's not just if we hit somebody with a baton or kill them or shoot them. As soon as the officer lays a hand on that person, other than doing a handcuffing, they have to fill out a use of force report form. Okay, so, there's, and 95%, and we have about, in general, 40,000 arrests a year. And of those 40,000 arrests, 95% of them, no force is used. So you're only talking about 5% of our arrests where your force is used, and of that 5%, about 95% of those is just a light touch, an escort, maybe a leg strike. But anything higher than that, if you go to the next, and the next, I think, was 1% was use of OC, and then after that, 1/4% was taser, and then it went down from there.
Yeah. So the reporting is like you're dashing on the same head of a very few number of cases, and then I understand the point of the article, which was that if there's discrepancies, then it throws everything into question. But I just want to put into context what you're talking about is a very, very few number relative to experience of other police departments.
Right. Period. And let me also, because, you know, they try and say, oh, well, you know, for shooting or for fatalities or people who die in police custody, what they don't understand is that for our reporting, so if it is a justified homicide, it is not reported as a fatality when you take a look at, I think it's the FBI stats or whatever. So there's certain rules for reporting. So we may say that, hey, 20 people died in our custody, but when you run the stats on FBI or whatever, it may only show 16. Well, you guys are not telling us the truth because there's 4 people. Well, because of the reporting standards, and that's kind of where some of the, and we try to explain that to them, but they didn't, because it didn't fit what they were trying to do with the article. Right?
I appreciate the clarification. Any
Is
further
every use of force reviewed
Well,
by a superior?
the sergeant, yeah. So when the sergeant signs off on the report, the sergeant is supposed to make sure that, you know, it's filled out, and also that, you know, whatever is in the report is what actually happened. Yeah. So, and then at the end, I mean, like I said, and that's what this whole use of force report form is supposed to be. Is we're supposed to take a look and go, hey, you know, where can we do better? Yeah.
I have a quick question. What is a use of force simulator? And before the simulator, was it person-to-person, body-to-body contact? And was that more of a better training tool rather than a simulator? Like, what is that?
Okay, so yeah, the use of force simulators is pretty cool. We had one before, but it was like 2-dimensional type of thing, and it broke a long time ago. And so we still do scenario-based training. So scenario-based training is still done in the recruit school, and also in our annual recall training. So the simulator, it's like 3 different panels, so it's almost like a surround. So that when you go in, you don't know what the scenario is, and then, you know, so you're confronted, it's like you get sent on a call for an argument, and then how you respond to it, you know, your directions or whatever, the program will run based on what you're saying. And so it also, you know, like say if somebody reaches for their wallet, you know, and you're looking, oh, did the officer pull their gun and shoot them because they thought the wallet was a, you know, so in other words, you know, you also train them, hey, you can't just react, but you have to look and see, you have to see your surroundings. And you know, well, I probably can't talk about that. But anyway, but we, you know, and that's our, trying to train our officers where they make split-second decisions, but at the same time, they also have to be aware of their surroundings. So you're not going to want to shoot at somebody or anything else if you've got bystanders in the back or somebody who might be, you know, who might be in danger. So all these things, scenarios have to run through the officer's mind. And by using these simulators, it allows them practice to do that without, you know, which we really can't replicate on a one-to-one, person-to-person type of thing. So it's not by itself the panacea, but in connection with scenario-based training, you know, it gives the officer one more, you know, opportunity to, you know, for judgment calls.
I remember the CPA class allowed an opportunity to just have that stimulation and, you know, face-to-face, which was very helpful. And, you know, it gives you that opportunity to have that split-second opportunity to make decisions. So I'm glad to hear that it's done. I have another question about the implicit bias training.
Mm-hmm.
Is that specific to, what is that specific to?
Anything. So you've got a conscious bias. So I mean, and there's different articles and research regarding does implicit bias even exist. So in other words, that's saying that everybody has a bias towards something. You know, whether I don't like this person because of that, or I don't like that, you know, this person because, you know, you got a bias somewhere. Implicit means that, yeah, you've got the bias, but you really haven't recognized it. You know it's there, but you haven't really said that you have it. And so they say that when you have these implicit biases, that your reaction towards a group of people could be affected because of your implicit bias. And then there's other research that says, no, everyone knows who you don't like and who you do like type of thing. But, you know, regardless of which side you're looking at, I mean, we already have bias-based training. But, you know, if it's something that'll help the officers, if it's something that'll expand on our bias-based training, whatever. I mean, it can only help, right? I mean, and anytime, you know, and that's what, you know, we talk about, you know, here in Hawaii, one thing is that we've got no shame about talking about race. We talk about race all the time, and when you meet people, it's like, oh, so what is your background? You know, what is your nationality? Oh, yeah, you know, and we don't ever go, oh, look, yeah, she's Portuguese. She's like, there's Philippines. She's probably Philippine, Hawaiian, Portuguese, or, you know, I mean, because we always talk about race, right? And so I think a lot of it, you know, when we've been discussing this is that if you get to know, whether it's a group that you dislike, you know, just because of a stereotype that you've always grown up with or were told, but if you get to know people on an individual basis, you see them as an individual, not as that stereotypical group. So, I mean, any of that type of training where that, you know, and does it affect us here in Hawaii? I mean, it does, but I think a whole lot less so than on the mainland. Hopefully that didn't.
No, thank you. Thank you, Chief. And the last point was just more of a comment. I saw the news release about Trump, you know, his executive order or such. But what was interesting when I was reading through it is just the fact that Honolulu already has a lot of this in place. I mean, the independent credentialing, we have Kalea. You know, the use of force policy prohibiting chokeholds, you already said that, we already follow that. And I think some of the conversation and the mental health, homelessness, addiction, that's already something that Honolulu has implemented. So like you said before, a lot of this, we've already set the bar high, where the department is already doing these things. And it's just surprising that, you know, you put something out like this that is almost your handbook or the department's handbook. So it was a sense of almost sense of security that Honolulu was already implementing a lot of this stuff. And I think, you know, with the Kalea and what Honolulu and a lot of the other county departments are doing, it already shows that you're leading by example. And just you addressing that 8 can't wait issues, I mean, that's something that I think the public needs to understand that the department's already implementing. So I think any opportunity, your opportunity with HPR, at least some of us had a chance to listen to it.
Yeah.
It was very forthcoming, and I just thank you for doing these interviews, you know, for the public to get a better understanding.
Did you listen to Kumu?
I did it. How did that one go?
It went
I'm
well.
looking for a replay of that.
Yeah, I think you can click on the link, it's on there, the thing, so, yeah, but it was interesting panel, had, I remember from, a Goodyear for.
Goodyear.
Yeah, from the poli-sci side, Alfonso Bragg from NAACP, Dr. Glenn from the Popolo Project, and then me, so, yeah, it's interesting, you know, and it's always a learning experience too, yeah, you know, just learning from other people, so. But I think overall that, you know, it went well. And then, Chief Max did one the previous week on Saturday for, for NAACP, they did a town hall after the meeting, thing too, on the Black Lives Matter.
Anything further for Chief? Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Moving on our agenda. Here it is. Okay, moving on to approval of the minutes for the open session of May 20th. Commissioner Perry.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of our open session of the Honolulu Police Commission on May 20th. I know that all four of us were in attendance, fortunately.
Thank you. Hearing the motion and a second. All those in favor, say, any discussion before we vote? Hearing no discussion. By roll call vote, all those in favor, Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaga?
Aye.
Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on, reports on actions taken at the executive session of May 6, 2020. Commissioner.
During the executive session of May 6, 2020, Commissioners approved the March 4, 2020 executive session minutes. Commissioners also accepted the recommendation of the executive officer and closed HPC numbers 19-084, 19-085, 19-091, 19-093, 19-095, 19-096, 19-097, 19-099, 19-100, 19-101, and 19-102. The following complaints without further investigation pursuant to Honolulu Police Commission Rule 9-1C, as the complaints are not within the jurisdiction of the Commission. I'd like to move for adoption of this report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any second?
I say.
Any discussion regarding Commissioner Okinaga's motion? Hearing none. Okay, by roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaga?
Aye.
Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on. New business number 2, HPC editorial commentary to the media. Before we get into this topic, I just wanted to make a few comments, if I could. I wanted to take this time to acknowledge that as a commission, we take our roles very seriously, and each of us individually brings life experiences to this body that is unique to one another. We are all taking the situation happening around the country very seriously, and it is an opportune time for our communities to have thoughtful dialogue, not only on police reforms, but on personal reforms, starting within our own homes. It is very important for the public to know that each of us, and I'm not speaking on behalf of any of us, but myself, take our roles very seriously, and that requests for changes must be thought about methodically and with the best interest of the public's health and safety in mind. The media perpetuating inaccuracies about the current commission, for example, Mr. Shapiro's claim that this commission gave former chiefs glowing reviews, is inaccurate. If Mr. Shapiro did his research, he would know that none of the current commissioners were around for the former chief's glowing reviews. The media's inaccuracies is causing unnecessary angst within the community. That is inaccurate, false, and unnecessary. As commissioners, it is not only in times like this that we step up and not run away, but at every moment as a sitting commissioner, it's imperative that we are diligent in all we do, in looking at citizens' complaints, any impropriety by HPD personnel, or anything that doesn't pass the basic smell test. HPC staff and independent investigators provide us with the resources we need to understand a citizen's complaint about an officer's conduct. Each of us volunteered to sit on the commission knowing that the department could never let what happened 3 years ago ever be repeated. And it's imperative for each of us to help build that trust in the department and ensure that any oversight is genuine and accountable. And accountability is what Chief Ballard and the commission has been successful in bringing forth. We as a collective body work together, not as single watchdogs, but as a collective body. And the focus of this commission is to continue doing its job by asking tough questions, engaging with the communities, listening to their concerns, and working with the chief to improve the department. And I just wanted to open it up with that statement. A lot of frustration, has been felt by myself and others about perception being provided in the media. So with that, I just wanted to open it up with any other comments by commissioners.
I think very well said, Chair. And I think it does speak for all of us. There's been a lot of frustration out there with very inaccurate things in the news, and we wish that certainly people would follow up, investigate before they write something. So I think that sets, the record straight. That we all work very well together. We work together well when we had 6, and we work together well when we have 4, and soon we'll have 6 again, and we'll do the same thing. All of us take this job very, very seriously, spend a lot of time doing it, and are very proud to serve the community. So thank you for that, Chair. Very well said.
I echo the sentiments. I did wonder, Aaron, have you heard the reason why the op-ed has not been published?
I will tell you that normally, Richard, it does take a little over a week. Shannon and I would talk about that.
Okay.
It normally does.
Here, here. Thank you very much for your comments. I really appreciate it. I agree with everything you said. To think that the work of the commission isn't enough to keep us all busy. But I guess that's my plea to the group as well, as we move beyond and look at all the things that we need to do on the commission, that we keep our eyes focused, continue to be focused on the welfare of the department and the officers and the chief, and try to make sure that we're just encouraging the best police department possible. To think that we spend all these hours, if we didn't think we could have a role in making the police department better, and it's incredible. It's not true, and it's incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nothing further regarding the HPC editorial commentary, we'll move on to number 3, discussion of HPD's use of force. This was added to the agenda. As Chief mentioned, the department is initiating a committee and has invited the commission to participate. And I wanted to open it up to all of you to see if anyone would like to volunteer to sit on it. I informed Chief that I would be willing to attend the first meeting if no one at this meeting is willing to volunteer or has the time. And if anybody is able to step up and sit on that committee, they would be representing the commission and reporting back to us as to the progress of the committee, as Chief will also do with regard to issues.
Yeah. So, I mean, what sort of expertise do you think is appropriate? What are you looking for tonight?
I think we just, so that maybe that you folks can become familiar, with the use of force and through civilian eyes, ask questions. Because it's people who aren't in the police department that always have questions on why we do what we do. I mean, and I think it'll be really educational, so that when you do review, cases in the future and stuff, that you'll have a really good idea as to what we're looking at for responses from the officers.
So you don't think sort of having a legal background?
No, absolutely not. We're good. We got legal over here. She'll be our handful.
Chief, would you say that the commission would be a vessel from the community if the community had anything to add, that we could bring it to us and we could share it as a member of that committee? Sure. Just because, I mean, anybody?
I'm lawyer. That leaves one for
I mean, I'd be happy to do it. I guess given that I'm the only one who does that full-time job, might also help. But unless one of you guys has a
if you don't want to. I'm happy to be like, whatever you.
You're talking about.
Maybe we can have a backup if there's any conflict with Mr. Perry's schedule. I mean, if you guys could both keep each other
Sure,
apprised.
sure.
There's no need to
Absolutely.
repeat, you know, on the committee's part, because I think they want to move pretty fast.
Yeah.
It's evident that, you know, Chief wants to see something passed in about 3 months or less.
Good.
And I think the community is wanting to see what the
Yeah,
response is.
Are you gonna meet a few times a week, is that how you?
I think, maybe once a week.
Every other
Yeah, once a week or once every other week.
Yeah.
There'll be assignments, you know, like research this or research that or whatever to make sure, yeah. So, if you can, get us your contact information and then make sure that we can let you know when well, we already know when the next meeting is, but.
Thank you.
So it's a week today.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Perry, for volunteering on behalf of the commission. We look forward to, you know, community engagement. I mean, if you have anything that you want to bring forth to the commission.
And I'll back up with you if you need anything,
Sounds good.
Great.
work your way, but
I mean, if you both want to come, then that's fine too.
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, thanks.
So it's no formal, you know, recognition of that appointment.
Because there's not 3 of you, so you're not escaped.
Yeah. Let's get up here. That's great, Steve. Okay. Moving on, discussion of HB 285-2019 relating to public safety. I guess before the commission takes it up, if Chief, you had anything, any commentary on HB 285?
Well, I mean, it's inevitable with what's going on, and, you know, as you saw, even with Trump's, executive order coming down, and then also Senate and House of Reps is all gonna have basically the same thing, you know, having, you know, whether it's a decertification, you know, something public where, you know, the officers who are suspended or terminated, their names are being released. What we asked, and obviously, we're gonna just follow whatever is passed. But one of our recommendations that we asked them to look at is that, one was that, because a lot of times officers, I shouldn't say a lot of times, occasionally officers are suspended for procedural types of things, like not turning in their mileage, or overdrawing gas, or reporting to work late, where, I mean, is that really a public need to know versus the officer's privacy rights? So, we asked them to take a look and said, well, you know, if there's certain things that you're looking at that you want to be reported, like, you know, excessive force or, you know, domestic violence or something like that, or, you know, any type of felony, you know, then can you, like, narrow it down so it doesn't include the whole, you know, the whole ball of wax, if they're going to do that. The other thing is that we wanted them to do was also to, if they are going to pass this, to have a stop doing that annual report to the legislature, because basically you're doing twice the work, on that. And then we also asked them on this act to include state law enforcement. For whatever reason, sheriffs, DLNR are not included. So, I mean, to be fair, it should be all law enforcement.
So now they're excluded, they would.
They don't have to do it.
Chief, would you be worried of any sort of backlash from the officers? Showcase.
Maybe initially, well, I mean, obviously Showcase is against it. I mean, I know
Yeah.
Malcolm did a editorial or opinion piece in today's paper. And I think his concerns are the same as ours, which is, you know, that these procedural types of things. You know, from the officers, I think initially it's going to be hard for them. I hope not, but what I can see is that they may have some hesitation in acting and reacting to situations out there, or not reacting to them because it's not worth getting in trouble over. Because if my name's going to be put out there, whatever, you know, just do whatever the least possible, because I don't want to engage them if I ended up going to get a complaint against them, type of thing. I hope not, but I mean, those are all, you know, possibilities.
So for those administrative type violations, is there a way to not bench, as opposed to a different form of discipline, such that you can get to the same end without, because the suspension discharge language is the same, and for everybody else, that's always the argument, and trying to,
We could take a look and call it something else, but.
well, I'm not saying get around.
Right, but
all
what
I'm
it
saying
is it because it becomes, progressive.
Yeah.
So if they're getting suspended for procedural, they've done it more than once. But even like, violation of their special duty, you can get, or if you get more than, 3 accidents in a year, you can get suspended.
Yeah.
So it's progressive, and so, there's really not any other way, around that.
That's in the collective bargaining agreement?
With that.
Is that in the collective bargaining agreement?
No, it's, some of it is our policy, and in general, well, actually it is policy, we always look at progressive, so that, basically we start out like a verbal or, just a reprimand type of thing, and then you go to a written reprimand, and then you start, there's suspension.
So is that prescriptive? That's hard.
Yeah.
And I did see the concern about the recruiting, the impact on recruiting, so I do see that in things about our policy, that is, a concern.
And just to that comment, I mean, I think to Shopo's comment regarding just how different the department is,
Yeah.
from
Right.
whenever you even entered the department with respect to social media and folks filming right away, all of these, I think, impact recruitment, right?
We are different,
Yeah.
Okay, they're talking about, you had a spike in officer-involved shootings. We had 8 in a year. As compared to, what are we comparing this to? Yeah, okay, it's high for Honolulu, but in general, for any other large major police department, that's nothing, so and you take a look, over a year, 2,000 use of force incidents, and it could be the same one person who we arrested 10 different times. It doesn't mean we use force on 2,000 people, just means we use it 2,000 times, and it could have been on 1,500 people. So when you take a look at what's happening, I can understand where, maybe they're terminated. And of course, all this also goes back, is that none of it, and I'm hoping it's in there, it needs to be reported until they get finished with the grievance procedure. Because, they always have that right, because at the end of the grievance procedure, they may say that no, and you make them whole, and so you're putting their name out there when they haven't gone through their entire due process. So, I understand the need, but maybe for, you just say certain things like termination, which it's already there.
Right.
If you, domestic violence, but if you get the domestic violence, you're going to be terminated anyway because you can't carry a gun. If it's a crime of violence, you're going to get terminated because you can't carry a gun. So all the things that they're worried about, we would already terminate them anyway. The only thing, obviously, they could go to arbitration and get their job back, but we have no control over that. So I don't know. I understand their concerns, but I think that there needs to be some type of happy medium.
I think you nailed it. It's a balance. It has to be a balance, but in this environment, it's going to be hard.
It is.
Like that balance. But I think I'm hopeful that through this committee, there's an education, not just about the policy and where it stands vis-a-vis others, but also where this police department and our record, our statistics stand vis-a-vis the other metropolitan areas like our side. Because I think there's a lot of educating that the public needs to do to get legislation that looks balanced.
Yeah, a lot of it is just a knee-jerk reaction for, things that are going on. There's things that are going on the mainland. No, we're not perfect.
Right.
Right. We do make mistakes, but when we realize our mistakes, and example is the toilet liquor thing. As soon as we're going to take action. If we see something wrong, we find that we're going to take action. So it's not like, we've got things in place, like we've got extended actions. Well, if an officer gets disciplined, and discipline is, basically, I guess more of a suspension or higher, 3 times in 1 year, they're terminated. If we've got early recognition reports. So say you have an officer who, might have had 5 complaints against them, and all of them were unfounded or not sustained, but yet then their sick leave is a problem, or they're being late to work, and all these, so it triggers what we call an early recognition report. So we do this report, and you put all this stuff together, and then they're referred for, you know, possibly a fitness for duty with our psychologist. So we have a lot of things in place, but I don't think people, and we have, like I said, we have so much in this department, and people just don't realize, you know, all the policies and procedures that we have in place to address all this. It's not, sometimes we think that, people think that we just like, yeah, let me do this today. Oh, let me do this today, but it's not. I mean, we've got set things for everything. When we run into situations, yeah, I mean, just like the use of force. Hey, this came up, we see it's a problem, but yet we're going to address it. So we make our system stronger. But by doing this, you know, with the officers and stuff, you know, or a lot of these things that they're, you know, that the nation, and you can see that the nation is behind. There does need to be police reform, but can you leave number 50 state alone? We're kind of doing okay over here, you know. So, but I don't know how to get that information out. I mean, it's difficult. It's very difficult to get that out.
I think you have a good case in point too, with some of the minor things like absenteeism, or, you know, coming in late, or filling the gas tank as you get. That isn't what I think should be on the report. You know, it should be, you know, top 10, whatever. There are suspensions for being aggressive or whatever. That kind of thing is more important than these other minor things that are part of a personnel file.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wish we would take more time and really digest this and dissect it and do something than just do it, sweep everything, you know, just take with one broad sweep, and then, you know, the officers and their families, whatever else.
That's not politics, unfortunately.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, if they, you know, they've stopped it and then they started it again, you know, I mean, it's just, this whole COVID thing is just throwing us for a loop all the way around.
Thank you for the discussion, Commissioner. Okay, moving on to number 5, email correspondence from Corporal Denny Santiago.
I'm going to need to ask to move that to executive session because it's involved in personnel matters.
Okay. Corporation also, is that okay for that request if the commissioners agree, or do we have to vote on that to the executive session? I think per the request of the chief, okay, because it's a personnel matter that should be discussed under the executive session. If there's no objection from any of the commissioners,
We should move it to amendment.
I guess my only issue is, that as I understand it, this email was made public and sent to the media and to the city council. Is that correct? Erin, I believe that's correct.
based on the
On that
correspondence.
basis, I mean, doesn't the commission have a responsibility to respond in some way to those shareholders, if you like? And I understand.
All I can tell you is that people are under investigation.
Okay.
And I can't discuss it anymore.
Well, I mean, I think that's important, because I think we certainly don't want to be seen as sort of sweeping it under the carpet. I will only talk about that in executive session if it's something that's important and potentially, is something that could be, we want the public to know that's being done. So,
let me assure you that what's in the email is not what's happening. That's all been resolved. That thing just keeps popping up, and it's his opinion. So be assured that the contents of that email, the body of that, well, then that's all right. I'll discuss it further.
And for the record, for the public's information, this is part of the packet, so if anyone is interested in knowing what it is, it's part of the packet and can request it to our office. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move to Mr. Yuen's Executive Officer Report, status of investigation.
Thank you, Chair. As of the 16th of June, total number of cases for 2020 is 46. Of the 46, 25 are still pending, which remains 21 cases. Of the 21, 13 has been referred to PSO, and the reason is it didn't fit our criteria for investigation. Closed by public service report is 3. Administrative close is 2, and 3 were withdrawn. That concludes the status of investigations. I have no office or personnel report.
Thank you, Executive Officer. Any questions for Mr. Yuen? Thank you. Hearing none, can we just move back up to new business, number 5, with regard to email correspondence from Corporal Denny Santiago? Would like to take a roll call vote to move that into executive session, if we can.
Amendment.
So amend the agenda.
You're gonna add it?
Yeah, add it.
Under the executive.
Yeah. Under, executive session 8. Okay, taking a roll call vote, may we have a motion to move that? So moved. Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaka?
Aye.
Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
All those in favor, motion carries. Now moving on to executive session. Commissioner Gibson.
Following agenda items will be reviewed in executive session pursuant to HRS 92.5A, subsections 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8 to consider the hire, evaluation, dismissal, or discipline of an officer or employee or of charges brought against the officer or employee for consideration of matters affecting privacy before be involved. To consult with its attorneys on questions or issues, matters affecting privacy pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities to investigate proceedings regarding criminal misconduct, to consider sensitive matters related to public safety or security, to deliberate or make a decision upon a matter that requires the consideration of information that must be kept confidential pursuant to state or federal law or a court order. During this meeting, there may be discussion with the chief of police and her staff regarding internal strategies and sensitive criminal investigation matters relating to public safety. That disclosure could significantly risk the circumvention of law and undermine the effectiveness of the public's protection by the police.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that this be accepted.
You second. Thank you. Chair votes, any discussion regarding moving into executive session? Hearing none, Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaka? Aye. Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We'll be moving into executive